Why don't we just wrap up with kind of something going on in the league, which I think you and I both agreed kind of the story of the week for the NFL was the injuries to the quarterbacks this week. It happens occasionally. It pops up. People get hurt every week. The quarterbacks just they're marquee players, so they get marquee attention.
Yeah, Roethlisberger with that sprained shoulder, and hey, that's actually good news, isn't it? That it wasn't a torn rotator cuff or something.
It wasn't a career-ending injury.
Right.
We're not fans of him, but we don't. As people who like watching football, I don't want to see people get hurt. Period. I don't care how much I hate the other team. It's still a game. So.
Well, yeah, and Jay Cutler with his concussion. What? Actually, I have to say. I liked Jay Cutler. I mean, I'm glad we have Manning. But, I was not pleased when, the whole McDaniels Cutler thing blew up the way it did.
That was very unfortunate.
Yeah, it totally was. The thing is, what I'm saying here is that, I keep an eye on Cutler, and I'm worried, actually, about him becoming the modern Steve Young of concussions. Because, unfortunately, just like that game that we were talking about a little while ago, where Cutler got sacked like 7, 8, 9 times, whatever it was, and he actually was pulled from that game with a concussion. How many concussions is this guy going to get?
Sure.
Do you
think his wife will be on TV one day, like Steve Young, asking the league and the team?
I hope
make
not.
him stop playing.
I hope not, particularly given what we know now about the long-term effects of obvious concussions and all those little tiny, brain bumps that, don't really show up as concussions. Unfortunately, Chicago's letting Cutler get hurt a lot.
It's the NFC North. I mean, the nickname for that division is the Black and Blue division. They play tough defense there. All 4 teams do.
Yeah.
Traditionally. So that you, in fact, years ago when Cutler did go to the Bears, you and I talked about this, and it was like he's going to spend a lot more time on his back. The Broncos' offense at the time was get rid of that ball as soon as it got in your hands.
Right.
Don't take a lot of hits.
Yeah.
And the NFC North is not about that at all. It hasn't been for years. So, yeah, and let's not forget Alex Smith, San Francisco.
Right,
Took a
Alex
hit to the
Smith.
helmet. He also went down as well. So, again, we see the ugly specter of concussions coming up, and that's just the quarterbacks. There were a lot of other players that were hurt pretty badly this week. And it's going to be a continuing story for the NFL. They were running that ad where is it safe to play in the NFL? The answer is really no. Let's face it, these guys are so big and so strong these days that there really isn't any reasonable amount of padding you can carry and still play the game without looking like those little blow up talking about the guys where they bump into each other. It's like a party thing where you get in this really big suit, you can't even put your arms down.
Oh, the sumo
Right.
suits, yeah.
The NFL's get, there's no way in the well, save the laugh. The reality is the NFL, the players are. We're not going to do this like all day.
I'm just imagining guys coming out, 22 guys coming out on the field in sumo suits.
They'd have to make Stick'em legal again because you can't get your arms to catch the ball.
Yeah,
you just have to coach you completely in Stick'em, and you just like one guy would just kind of like do this with the ball, and would just kind of clop onto the other guy and bounce down the field.
You know that yard game where you have like the blow up target with the like Velcro strips? It's like a game of darts, but it's with tennis balls and Velcro.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it would be like. The quarterback throws the ball and it sticks on the Velcro of the guy waddling down the field in a sumo suit.
I mean, we jest, but that's kind of what, at the end of the day, the reality is somewhere between that and what we have today is where we have to go.
Unfortunately, and, here's an editorial on the NFL. I don't think that NFL level play can ever be made completely safe. I think the truth of it is that athleticism and the size of players have created a situation where the physics is always going to be dangerous to the players.
Absolutely.
No matter what kind of pads, no matter what kind of helmet, we're basically watching the modern version of a Coliseum blood sport. And, the thing about it is that, I'm enough of a libertarian to say, hey, you know what? If these guys want to play this game at this level, with the full knowledge that they're going to get hurt, then okay, you know what? That's fine. But it does make the future of the NFL kind of a tough thing to predict, because there are an awful lot of moms are going to say, well, maybe Johnny should be playing soccer.
Yeah, baseball.
Baseball, right.
Lots of money. Well, we've heard a couple of things. There's been a lot of rumblings. I mean, Emmitt Smith came out with the idea, and it's an old one, make them go back to no helmets or leather helmets. And at first that sounds insane. Like,
right.
People will get killed, but you realize people will keep their heads up. But the problem is that people will still get hurt because they're wearing leather helmets. So that's not, it's one of these things where you're not really solving the problem. You're trying to mitigate it, and that mitigation really doesn't work.
Well, you know what I wonder about is I wonder what the rate of concussion specifically and injury overall is in rugby, because they don't play with pads. So yeah, I mean, with the idea, that's true. But if the rate of injury is lower in the sport of rugby, then it does raise the question that maybe exposing the players to more injury from by taking away the pads, then actually routes them into safer playing behavior.
Sure.
Maybe the NFL becomes a flag football league.
We talked about this. So we said that, what they should do? You go to the game. They pull 50 random people out of the stadium who are willing to sign a waiver. You stick helmets on them, and that's the that's the team for the day for the home team. The other team brings in their 50 fans, and we watch that. It could be a lot less dangerous. Another thing, even Terry Bradshaw came out at the start of the year when this whole concussion thing was going on, or the league's response to the concussions, specifically as part of the negotiations for the new contract. Terry Bradshaw, basically came out and said, "Listen, football's in 5 years isn't going to be anything like we remember it." So. Where the moral art, I love football. I really love football. I love it at every level. The game inside the game inside the game is what's so fascinating for me. It's a really amazing team sport. It's a play-based team sport, which means that there's a whole set of people that aren't on the field,
right,
that are involved every situation. Which makes it a little bit different than soccer. Soccer doesn't. Soccer is a great team sport, but it's about the team players knowing where to be, kind of on their own.
Sure. Same thing with hockey.
Same thing with hockey, that kind of thing. So football is a team sport that involves a bigger team, a meta team outside the physical players that I find fascinating. It's actually the best. To me, it's the funnest part of the game. When everybody executes the play perfectly, that's fun to watch. But watching the coaches do their thing, to me, is fascinating. But at what point does something I love become kind of a morally questionable thing to be involved in at any level? As a fan, as somebody who does video blogs about it, I don't think we're there with the NFL. I think the NFL is doing what it can right now to mitigate this. But I'm with you to a certain extent. If the people want to play, then let them play. But however, for some people, this is the only thing they can do. This is what they've been groomed for from high school, and of course they're going to say yes because they want the money.
Right.
And so,
in fact, that's really part of the reason, and not just money, but also the fame, the accolades.
Sure.
I mean,
that's true. Yeah, that money is they want the package.
Right. Exactly. And it doesn't matter how injured they are. I mean, if they can take a shot in the knee, if they can ice themselves off in the cold bath.
Sure. And the league has changed there too. I mean, old school football, the old up to the 70s, 80s.
Right.
There was a lot of locker room shenanigans with hurt players. People being injected with stuff that was really dangerous. I think I applaud the NFL for all the steps they've taken consistently year to year. Like this year, if you have a concussion, you're out of the game.
Right.
Or even if they think you have a concussion, if you don't pass the off-field medical examination. Furthermore, you are not allowed back on the field or to practice until an independent doctor examines and clears you. So that takes, because for years, and it's still true, teams had their own doctors.
Right.
And those guys were in bed with the coach. You had to be.
Right.
If you wanted to be an honest doctor and an NFL team, you didn't have a job.
Like that movie, Any Given Sunday, and the doctor.
They touched on that, but the reality is much, much worse. What has been traditionally much worse. So I applaud the NFL for doing what they're doing, but I also agree with you completely that this is the physics of the game. And You know, in the 70s, when you had guys smoking, the quarterback smoking, throwing the cigarette down, jogging onto the field, you know, Kenny Stabler kind of guys going on the field and doing their thing. Not that they weren't great athletes for their day, but that was a whole different kettle of fish.
Right.
This is something completely different now.
I mean, when you have a 6 foot guy, you know, 6'5" guy, you know, who's, you know, around 300 pounds, you know, 280 if he's a linebacker or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Who can do, you know, like a 440.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what do you do with that? I mean,
Sure.
that is physics designed for injury. You know?
Even the quarterbacks are buff these days.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. So I, you know, I don't know what the NFL does in the long term. I don't know what America does in the long term or something like that. It's a damn popular game, and I don't really know of any realistic way to change it that keeps people's interest. Not because it's not. People don't watch football for the injuries.
No.
It's you know, there are some sports out there that I think people do say that. I don't necessarily agree with that. Like NASCAR, a lot of people say people only watch the races to see people get hurt. I don't think that's true, but that's a common thing that's said.
Right.
People don't say that about football. People don't want their players being hurt.
No.
You know, I remember when Joe Theismann went down, and again, Jonathan has mentioned, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. I hated that guy because he generally beat us like a drum every year.
Right.
But when he went down, and you know,
With that leg flopping in the air, you know, they played over and over again.
yeah, when Lawrence Taylor sacked him, and I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's his career is over. Because back then, that was the
Right.
death knell for your career. There was no coming back from that. I was horrified. That was a bad day for football. That was not a good day for Cowboys fans. You know, if you're a fan of the sport, you want the best team facing the best team, right? That's where football is great. You know, when people get hurt, or with the New Orleans scandal where, you know, allegedly they were paying a bounty on hurting other players.
Right.
That is way crossing over a line of competitiveness that does turn it into a blood sport, and that's not right.
It's a perversion of the sport.
Absolutely.
I mean, the thing about it is that, you know, I think that football fans admire the toughness, the physical toughness.
Sure.
But physical toughness is, you know, not about, you know, breaking people's legs unless you're talking about, you know, Mad Max Thunderdome, okay?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's not football. Because there are all these layers of, you know, the right play, the right package, the adjustments. It's, you know, the whole chess match of it.
Absolutely. And still the individual player making that ridiculously insane catch or run, or a lineman getting a great block. You know, somebody just...
Absolutely.
You know, so it's a team sport that allows for individuals to shine, and in some cases to look like complete asses. Hello, Philip Rivers. So, you know...
The tricky bit, I think actually the greatest threat to the NFL right now, it's funny how we've actually kind of gotten off onto this tangent.
It's great
here.
after shows material, I think.
But I think the greatest threat to the NFL right now are, you know, with all these injuries, you know, these moms and dads legitimately saying, "Do I want to stick my kid in Pee Wee?"
Right.
You know, there's a reason. I mean, that my brother, who is more athletic than me, and yes, I give you props on that. You're more athletic than me. He was a good soccer player, and he was a great skier. But
I remember as a kid doing that. That was awesome. A little boo bomber.
but my parents would not let him around football. They didn't want him to break limbs. They didn't want him getting concussed.
Yeah, I mean, I think any parent who's looking at this from a non-emotional standpoint, I think if you go look at the statistics as you work your way through Pee Wee all the way up to the professional leagues, there are a lot of people who fall by the wayside
because
with
of injuries,
broken legs, never heal right, that kind of stuff.
It's one thing to have a professional player, you know, who's gotten to the pinnacle of the sport and is getting paid large bucks to, with full adult insight and knowledge, say, yes, I'm willing to sell the health of my body to play this game. But it's another thing for all those people who are, you know, in the feeder system of, you know, Pee Wee and high school and college, who are not getting rewarded at all, but ruin their bodies anyway. That's the problem.
So, you know, I think when we look back at that NFL commercial, I think a more honest, because they just completely whitewash it. Is it safe? Yes, of course it is. It was like a PS. It's like one of the old '60s public service announcements.
Right.
No, it's not. But
we're making it safer.
We're doing our damn best. And should your kid play football? You have to make up your own mind on that.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be tough. So listen, if I had a kid, it'd be baseball. the longevity of the baseball career compared to.
Let's put it this way. If it came down to having my teenage son smoking cigarettes or playing football, I would still have him play football.
That's harsh, man. And on that, all right. So actually, there's one thing I think we need to backfill. We need to backfill crap. I think it was.
That might be the highlight reel right there.
Yeah, there was something we were talking about. I should have wrote this down. There was one thing that we started talking about, and then we got the sumo thing. We started laughing about that, and we can definitely put that at the end of that.
Right.
So let me make a quick statement about the safety leading to the sumo thing, because we never we started laughing and talking about the sumo thing, but we never actually mentioned how we got there because I couldn't remember what it was called.
Right.
So, with the NFL, I mean, with safety these days, it's. I mean, obviously the equipment's much better than it used to be, but we just like we just talked about, the physics problem is going to be an issue here.
Right.
So it's almost like you've got to get down to like there's the sumo party things,
Right.
You're out like this, I
am the Stay Puft Marshmallow
Yeah,
Man.
exactly. We'll stick them on the front, so you can throw the ball to people. But otherwise, you don't really know what to do. And that's, I think, enough to cover that out. We need an outro.
Why don't you take the outro?
Sure. All right. So I think that'll wrap it up for Sportishness this week. Jonathan, enjoy good football.